It's 9 p.m. You've had dinner. You're full, genuinely full. You don't need more food, but there's a pull, a specific, undeniable craving that has nothing to do with hunger. You need something sweet. You tell yourself you'll just have one cookie, one piece of chocolate, one small bowl of ice cream, just to satisfy the craving. Just to quiet that insistent voice in your head demanding sugar. 2 hours later, the cookie box is empty. The chocolate bar is gone. The ice cream container shows significantly more damage than one small bowl would explain. And you feel terrible, physically bloated, mentally defeated, emotionally ashamed. Why can't I control this, you think? It's just sugar. It's not heroin. Why can't I just eat one piece and stop? You've tried. You've tried eliminating sugar completely, only to binge after 3 days of deprivation. You've tried moderation, only to discover that just one is never actually just one. You've tried keeping sweets out of the house, only to find yourself driving to the store at 10 p.m. specifically to buy the cookies you're craving. And the worst part, people don't take it seriously. Just have some willpower, just eat healthy. It's not a real addiction, as if you haven't tried. As if you're just weak or lazy or lacking self-control. But here's what they don't understand. Sugar addiction is real. Measurably, neurologically, biochemically real. It activates the same brain pathways as cocaine, creates the same dopamine response as addictive drugs, produces actual withdrawal symptoms when you try to quit. You're not weak. You're not lacking willpower. Your brain has been hijacked by one of the most addictive substances legally available, deliberately engineered to be as compelling as possible, and you're fighting a neurological battle that most people don't even recognize exists. Tonight, I'm going to show you exactly what sugar does to your brain, why it's so addictive, and why breaking free is so much harder than people realize. Before we dive deep into applied psychology, subscribe to the channel. Tell me in the comments where you're from. Sarah Mitchell was 36 years old when she finally admitted to herself that she had a sugar addiction. Not just a sweet tooth, not just enjoying desserts, an actual diagnosable addiction that was controlling her life in ways she'd spent years denying. She would plan her day around when she could get sugar, would feel anxious if she didn't have access to sweets, would hide candy in her desk drawer, her car, her purse, so she'd never be without it, would eat sugar in secret because she was ashamed of how much she consumed, would lie to her partner about how many cookies she'd eaten, how often she stopped for ice cream, how much chocolate she went through in a week. And she couldn't stop, no matter how much she wanted to. No matter how many times she declared, "Tomorrow, I'm quitting sugar." Tomorrow would come, and by 2 p.m. she'd be eating cookies, telling herself she'd start fresh the next day. What Sarah didn't understand, what most people don't understand, is that sugar addiction operates on the exact same neurological mechanisms as drug addiction, and the science proves it. Dr. Nicole Avena, neuroscientist at Princeton University, has spent years studying sugar's effects on the brain using animal models. Her research shows that sugar triggers dopamine release in the nucleus accumbens, the brain's reward center, in patterns nearly identical to cocaine and other addictive drugs. When you eat sugar, your brain floods with dopamine. That feels good. Really good. Your brain remembers this, creates associations between sugar and pleasure, begins craving that dopamine hit, just like it would with any addictive substance. But here's where it gets worse. With repeated exposure, your brain develops tolerance. The same amount of sugar that used to give you that dopamine rush no longer has the same effect. You need more to achieve the same feeling. This is classic addiction neurology. Sarah recognized this in herself. When she first started eating sweets regularly in her 20s, one cookie satisfied her. By her 30s, one cookie was just the appetizer. She'd eat 4, 5, 6 cookies before feeling satisfied, and even then, the satisfaction was temporary. Dr. Robert Lustig, pediatric endocrinologist at UCSF and author of The Hacking of the American Mind, explains that sugar doesn't just trigger dopamine, it also suppresses leptin, the hormone that signals fullness, and fails to suppress ghrelin, the hormone that signals hunger. Translation: sugar makes you want to eat more sugar while simultaneously preventing your body from recognizing when you've had enough. It's a biochemical trap. Sarah would eat an entire pint of ice cream and still feel hungry for more sweets. Not because she needed calories, she just consumed 1,000 of them. But because the sugar had hijacked her satiety signals, telling her brain she was still hungry, even when she was physically overfull. There's also research on what scientists call hedonic hunger versus homeostatic hunger. Dr. Ashley Gearhart at the University of Michigan, who developed the Yale Food Addiction Scale, found that sugar activates hedonic hunger, eating for pleasure, not for fuel. Homeostatic hunger is your body's genuine need for nutrition. You feel it when you actually need food. Hedonic hunger is your brain's desire for the pleasure experience of eating, completely independent of nutritional need. Sugar triggers hedonic hunger intensely. Even when you're full, even when you've eaten enough calories, your brain still wants the pleasure hit that sugar provides. It's not about fuel. It's about the dopamine. Sarah ate dinner until she was full, then immediately craved dessert. Not because she was hungry, because her brain wanted the sugar reward that dinner, no matter how satisfying nutritionally, didn't provide. But there's another layer to sugar addiction that makes it particularly insidious. Sugar is everywhere. Unlike cocaine or alcohol, which you have to deliberately seek out, sugar is in almost everything. Bread, pasta sauce, salad dressing, yogurt, granola bars marketed as healthy. You can't avoid it, even if you're trying. And the food industry knows exactly what it's doing. Dr. Howard Moskowitz, a food scientist who worked with major food companies, has openly discussed how products are engineered to hit the bliss point, the precise amount of sugar that maximizes cravings and consumption. Companies spend millions researching the exact formulation that makes you unable to stop eating. They're literally designing products to be addictive. This isn't conspiracy theory, it's documented business strategy. Sarah started reading labels and was horrified. Her healthy breakfast yogurt had 23 grams of sugar, more than a candy bar. Her protein bars had 15 grams. Her supposedly nutritious granola had 12 grams per serving. She'd been consuming massive amounts of sugar without even realizing it, from foods marketed as healthy. There's also a withdrawal component that most people don't recognize. Dr. Serge Ahmed's research in France found that rats given intermittent access to sugar showed actual withdrawal symptoms when sugar was removed: anxiety, teeth chattering, aggression. When Sarah tried to quit sugar completely, she experienced headaches, intense mood swings, irritability, anxiety, and obsessive thoughts about sweets. Classic withdrawal. Her brain, accustomed to regular dopamine hits from sugar, was in crisis without them. Most people experience this withdrawal and interpret it as, I need sugar for energy, or my body needs it. But it's not nutritional need, it's addiction withdrawal. Your brain desperately wanting the substance it's become dependent on. The psychological component is equally powerful. Dr. Tracy Mann, who runs the Health and Eating Lab at the University of Minnesota, found that restriction often backfires with addictive foods. The more you tell yourself you can't have something, the more you obsess about it, until you eventually binge. Sarah would declare no sugar for a week, last 3 days, then binge on an entire cake. The restriction created such intense psychological pressure that when her willpower eventually broke, she consumed far more than if she'd allowed moderate consumption. But moderation doesn't work for everyone with sugar addiction. Just like an alcoholic can't have just one drink, some people can't have just one cookie. One triggers the craving cascade that leads to overconsumption. Sarah discovered she was one of those people. Every attempt at moderation, having dessert once a week, allowing herself one small treat per day, failed. The sugar would trigger her addiction response, and she'd be back to daily overconsumption within weeks. Her breakthrough came when she finally treated sugar like the addictive substance it is, rather than just a food she liked too much. She went completely sugar-free, not as a diet, but as addiction recovery. The first 2 weeks were genuinely terrible. Withdrawal was real and intense. She felt irritable, anxious, physically uncomfortable, had vivid dreams about eating cake, obsessed about sugar constantly. But by week 3, something shifted. The obsessive thoughts decreased, the physical cravings diminished. Her energy levels, which she'd thought needed sugar to maintain, actually stabilized at a higher baseline than when she was consuming sugar daily. By month 2, she could walk past a bakery without the desperate pulling craving she'd felt her entire adult life. Sugar was just food again, not a drug she needed. She also discovered something interesting. Her taste buds recalibrated. Foods she'd previously thought were bland, fruits, vegetables, nuts, suddenly tasted sweet and satisfying. An apple, which used to seem like a poor substitute for cookies, now tasted intensely sweet and genuinely satisfying. Her brain had been so overstimulated by concentrated sugar that natural sweetness couldn't register. Once she removed the artificial intensity, her palate reset to appreciate subtle flavors. Dr. Avina's research confirms this. Sugar tolerance affects taste perception. The more sugar you consume regularly, the more you need to perceive sweetness, and the less satisfying natural foods become. It's a vicious cycle that makes whole foods seem unpalatable compared to processed sweets. Sarah also had to address the emotional component. She'd been using sugar to manage stress, boredom, sadness, anxiety. Any uncomfortable emotion triggered a craving for sweets. Sugar was her emotional regulation tool. Learning healthier regulation strategies, exercise, meditation, talking to friends, allowing herself to actually feel emotions instead of numbing them with sugar was crucial. The addiction wasn't just physical. It was psychological and emotional. 6 months after quitting sugar, Sarah's life had transformed. She'd lost weight without trying, not because sugar itself caused weight gain in some magical way, but because she'd stopped consuming thousands of extra calories weekly from sugar binges. Her energy was stable throughout the day, instead of spiking and crashing. Her mood was more even. She slept better. Her skin cleared up, but most importantly, she felt free. Free from the constant mental tyranny of sugar cravings. Free from planning her day around when she could get sweets. Free from the shame and self-judgment that came with repeatedly failing to control her consumption. I spent 20 years thinking I just lacked willpower, Sarah told me. That I was weak, that I just needed to try harder. But I wasn't weak. I was addicted. And once I understood that, once I treated it like an addiction rather than a character flaw, I could actually address it effectively. The science is clear. Sugar addiction is real. It's not willpower failure. It's not moral weakness. It's your brain responding exactly as evolution designed it to respond to a substance that triggers intense pleasure. The problem is that this evolutionary response, which made sense when sweet foods were rare and signaled valuable calories, is now being exploited by a food industry that puts sugar in everything and engineers products to be maximally addictive. You're not fighting your own weakness. You're fighting billions of dollars of research into how to make food as compelling as possible, combined with a brain that's wired to seek pleasure and avoid deprivation. If you're addicted to sugar, here's what actually helps. Treat it like an addiction, not a diet issue. Consider complete abstinence rather than moderation if moderation consistently fails. Expect withdrawal and don't interpret it as need. Address the emotional reasons you use sugar. Get support instead of trying to fight alone. And stop judging yourself for struggling with something that's genuinely difficult. Sugar addiction is real. The struggle is real. And you're not alone. And that's the end of our experience. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. It's very important for us to know the truth. Be honest in the comments, leaving creative suggestions so we can improve the quality of our content more and more. Comment where you're from. Check out the video on the screen. I'm sure you'll like it. See you in a few seconds. We are Applied Psychology, and this is our contribution. Subscribe.